Cryptocurrency solves a mechanical problem. It makes transferring financial value across the world as frictionless as sending an email. Compare that instant data transfer to a traditional cross-border wire. Moving money today requires pushing capital through a fragmented, archaic network of corresponding banking nodes, where each hop adds delays and processing fees. For nearly a century, the United States has held virtually absolute authority over this legacy plumbing. But the next iteration of global financial infrastructure is actively being constructed right now, entirely on blockchain networks. If the U.S. fails to upgrade its architecture to accommodate this technological standard, it risks ceding its position at the center of the global economy. Upgrading the financial system to prevent that outcome requires a precise three-layered architecture. It starts with a foundational base layer, technological resilience. Robust technology is the first requirement, followed immediately by clear legal parameters. These are the prerequisites for the ultimate objective: international geopolitical dominance. A structural failure at any single level of this stack creates a systemic vulnerability that competing global powers are eager to exploit. Examining how these three layers interact explains why Wall Street and Washington are suddenly working against a rapidly closing window of opportunity. At Layer 1, the immediate engineering priority is future-proofing the network against horizon-level threats, well beyond standard cybersecurity. The most pressing of these is quantum computing, a technology advancing fast enough that it will eventually be capable of shattering the standard cryptographic locks that secure digital assets today. Major platforms like Coinbase are preempting this by establishing independent advisory boards solely to manage the incoming quantum transition. Top industry cryptographers are actively writing and deploying quantum-resistant lattice-based algorithms to neutralize these vulnerabilities years before they can be weaponized. Achieving this impenetrable technological resilience is a strict, non-negotiable requirement before trillions of dollars of institutional capital can safely migrate onto the blockchain. Yet, even the most secure, quantum-resistant network sits idle without legal certainty. That brings us to Layer 2, and the current legislative vehicle designed to provide that certainty, the FIT21 bill, known as the Clarity Act. The legislation cleared the House of Representatives with massive bipartisan momentum, pulling in 71 Democratic votes alongside Republicans to establish a formal regulatory framework. But the bill is currently stalled in the upper chamber. Senate leadership expressed skepticism about moving the legislation forward before the impending legislative recess. This delay leaves the industry vulnerable to existing regulatory agencies, which have historically relied on politicized, enforcement-heavy tactics rather than publishing clear operational guidelines. The friction here is not technological readiness. The United States is bottlenecked entirely by its own legislative mechanics. A major headwind slowing the Senate's progress is a recurring allegation from traditional banks: the fear that integrating digital assets drains institutional bank deposits. The underlying logic suggests that as capital moves on-chain, traditional banks will have less fiat currency available to manage and lend out to consumers. This chart tracks digital asset market cap against traditional bank deposits. The macroeconomic data contradicts the theory entirely. Bank deposits have actually increased in tandem with the adoption of digital assets. Behind closed doors, legacy banks are already moving quickly to integrate stablecoins directly into their own operational infrastructure. The consensus among the old guard is fracturing. David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs, recently broke away from the anti-crypto banking majority to publicly support the Clarity Act. His rationale is straightforward. Implementing clear market structure rules eliminates regulatory uncertainty and creates an even playing field that allows legacy institutions to participate. Top financial executives recognize that resisting the technology is a losing battle. Regulating the space allows them to co-opt the new system rather than being replaced by it. Layer 1 and Layer 2 provide the technological and legal foundation for the final objective. That brings us to Layer 3. The core objective is maintaining control over the next generation of global financial infrastructure. Historically, the nation that builds and finances the predominant technological infrastructure dictates the rules of international trade. While the U.S. hesitates, China is heavily prioritizing the development of digital financial networks, aggressively expanding its own technological footprint. We are watching a rapid, state-sponsored deployment of financial technology overseas contrast directly against a stalled legislative docket in Washington. This competition for infrastructural dominance represents a macro geopolitical arms race. Congress faces a sharply compressed timeframe to act on the Clarity Act before the Senate adjourns for its August recess. The foundational code is already public. There is no reversing the deployment of decentralized networks. The United States is holding a rapidly closing window of opportunity to codify the global standards for this asset class. The operative question is no longer if the next financial system will be built, but whether its architecture will be directed by the United States or by China. Establishing regulatory clarity functions as a mandatory geopolitical maneuver to secure the American financial empire for the next century.